Hello and welcome to Bible Bites Daily. Today we have reached chapter 4 of Leviticus, a chapter that unfolds the profound theme of atonement and redemption through the sin offering. Within the intricate rituals and the sacrificial details, we discover a narrative of grace repentance and the divine provision for the forgiveness of sins. Join me as we explore the symbolism and significance within this chapter, where the act of offering becomes a pathway to restoration and reconciliation with God. Verses 1 to 3 talk about sinning unintentionally. Leviticus 4 begins with a scenario where someone sins unintentionally, unaware of committing an offense against God. That means they don't know that they are sinning at this moment, but they have done it. This emphasizes the recognition that sin, even when not intentional, has consequences and requires acknowledgement. So what this means is that even though you don't know that you are committing a sin, you have done it, still you will have to face the consequences and you will have to acknowledge before God that you have sinned. How do you do that? You will have to put it in your prayer that forgive me for whatever sins I have committed unintentionally. You have to say that explicitly in order to acknowledge those sins. The offering prescribed in this scenario involves a young bull, symbolizing strength and innocence. It teaches us that even our unintentional wrongs need reconciliation and restoration. Verses 4 to 12 talk about the ritual of atonement. Atonement, as we know, that seeking forgiveness for the sins committed. As the narrative unfolds, detailed instructions are given about the rituals of atonement. The person bringing the offering is required to lay hands on the head of the bull, symbolically transferring their guilt to the innocent animal. The shedding of blood and the burning of specific parts emphasize the seriousness of sin and cost of reconciliation. This ritual signifies the need for a substitute to bear the consequences of sin. Verses 13 to 21 talk about the sin of a leader. The chapter then addresses the scenario where a leader sins unintentionally. Whether a priest or a ruler, the leader is not exempt from the consequences of the sin. The required offering remains a young bull, emphasizing the responsibility and accountability of those in leadership. It teaches us that leaders too must humble themselves before God and seek forgiveness. Verses 22 to 26 talk about the sin of the common people. So more or less the same thing, even for the priests. It just simplifies and signifies that even priests or leaders are not innocent when it comes to intentional or unintentional sin. Verses 22 to 26 talks about the common people. The narrative continues with instructions for the common people who sin unintentionally. The prescribed offering varies based on one's social status, highlighting God's consideration for each individual circumstances. This section reinforces the idea that all are accountable for their actions, regardless of their position in society. Verses 27 to 35 talk about the ritual of atonement for the priest. The chapter concludes with instructions for the scenario where a priest sins unintentionally. The process mirrors that of the common people, emphasizing the equality of accountability before God. The blood manipulation and the burning of specific portions underscore the gravity of sin and the necessity of atonement. So basically this chapter is divided into 4 parts. Initially, the first one being sinning unintentionally. This is for everyone. And then we'll move on to ritual of atonement. And then we talk about the difference between a leader priest and a common person. So what we are seeing here is everything is same. There is no special treatment for a leader. There is no special treatment for a priest. Whoever sins has to face the circumstances. To conclude, in this narrative of Leviticus Chapter 4, we found a powerful message about atonement, about redemption, and about God's provision for forgiveness. The sin offering serves as a tangible and symbolic act of acknowledging guilt, seeking reconciliation and recognizing the need for a substitute to bear the weight of sin. So we may not be able to relate these same things in our current time. However, may this chapter inspire us to approach God with humility, acknowledging our sins, whether intentional or unintentional. The ritual of atonement teaches us about the cost of forgiveness and the need for a substitute. Pointing forward to the ultimate sacrifice of Christ, may we find solace in the provision God has made for our restoration and redemption. And may our hearts be drawn to Him in gratitude and repentance. So do not forget when you pray of acknowledging your unintentional sins as well. You may not be able to identify them, each one of them. However, when you mention unintentional sins and when you seek forgiveness for unintentional sins, everything comes under that. Thank you for listening. May God bless you all in abundance.